Welcome to the MVP show. Today we have Shane Young joining me to learn about his story, really. And you know, he's one of the most prolific YouTubers out there in our space, over 70,000 subscribers to his channel, all around power apps, power platform, and that type of thing. So tune in, listen to what he does, how that works for him, and his recommendations if you're starting your career in the space. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/235. Now let's get on with the show. Hey Shane, welcome to the MVP show.
Thanks, Mark. My mom will be super proud of me, so I'm very excited.
So good to have you on the show. Of course, last night because it's first thing in the morning for me, but I suppose a bit different where you're based. We both found out that we've been renewed as MVPs. So how many years is that for you now?
That is 15 years. Can you believe that? 15. Whoa.
That's a long time in the program.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. My MVP award will be able to start driving next year, right? It's going to want a learner's permit and all that. So
yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah. What category did you originally come in as?
So I was one of the very first SharePoint people. So I rode that train for as long as I could, and then kind of got sidetracked somewhere along the way and became a Power Apps and Power Platform type of guy. So
yeah. Well, it's kind of like, I think Microsoft saturated the SharePoint market. In other words, anybody that wants SharePoint kind of knows what it is and can get it now. And I'm just wondering if the Power Platform's that next thing for Microsoft, that next wave for them to generate licensing around, etc., and educate a whole new world with it.
I hope so. That was kind of the bet that I was taking. I joined SharePoint, like I said, very, very early in that one and rode that one to its ascent to $1 billion product. And, I got off the bus and I said, all right, what's next? And one of my good friends kind of moved roles into a Power Apps role at Microsoft. And he said, hey, I'm doing this Power Apps thing. And I'm like, cool, I'm in. And so I just dove in, and I can tell you that, it's got the same, feeling at the beginning. And, I'm a couple years into it now, almost 3, I think. And it's on that same trajectory that SharePoint was. So I think it is. I think you're right. That's kind of their next big play. So
yeah, so true. So tell us, Shane, whereabouts in the world are you based, and what do you do when you're not doing work?
Well, so I am in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is basically just the middle of America. If anyone's like, I do not know where Cincinnati, Ohio is. I don't blame you. Nothing exciting here. And honestly, being a small business owner, I mostly just work. I've got 2 kids that are, in competitive sports. So if I'm not working, I usually am at kid practice for this or that. But, the current lockdown situation of the world kind of makes some of that hard. So I just work a lot.
So how has the COVID situation affected your life?
On a personal basis, it completely reset. I mentioned the kids playing sports. Most of them, between the 2 of them, basically 7 days a week, we were at some form of kids practice, which is insane. And I realize it probably makes me a bad parent. Whatever, don't judge. But the kids wanted to do it, so we supported it. And so we went from, that to nothing overnight. And, from a personal perspective, it's completely changed what I do all the time. And it's been interesting kind of coping with, being home all the time.
Yeah. Are you totally separated away? I see from your videos that you obviously have a bit of a studio, but does it allow you separation a bit from the family so you can do focus time?
Not really. So I've used the basement. I've worked from home for really the entire 15 years I've been an MVP. So I've always kind of lived in this world where you just go downstairs and, and at certain points the kids did a great job and no big deal. And at this point, they're old enough that they kind of wander in and they're like, hey, I can see you're not on a call. Let me talk to you. I'm like, no, go away.
Yeah. Interesting. I noticed across your career, you've written a bunch of books. What's that experience like?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the SharePoint space, I wrote 6 different books along the way, or co-authored, right? I always had help. But yeah, and most of them are 400 to 500 page tomes. So, I don't know. I kind of, so book writing is interesting. I enjoy it from the standpoint of I'm a natural, I like to teach. So I've taught training forever. I've written. So I enjoyed that side of it. But man, somewhere in that process, you just, you learn to hate the English language, right? You learn to hate trying to make sentences sound better and not repetitive. I'm like, but I want to say the same thing again, but you can't. So I always tell people they should never write a book, but I've written 6, so I don't listen.
I find it like so much work for almost so little return when you're writing tech books.
Yes.
There's definitely no financial benefit, as in, people get all excited about maybe their 10 grand advance. And I'm like, do you realize how many hours it's going to take for you to do this? Your 10 grand, your hourly rate's going to be pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? If anyone's ever thinking about it, is, you don't write books to make money, right? You're not going to write Harry Potter. But if you've got something that goes along with it, in my case, right, I had a SharePoint consulting company. And so it drove revenue and it drove credibility for the business. Then the math works out a little better. But if you're like, you have a full-time job at a big corporate place, right, there's just no upside for you writing a book.
Carry on.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, and I feel the same way about, when I talk to people about wanting to be YouTube stars, right? A couple years ago, I made the change to, I make a lot of YouTube comments. I make a lot of YouTube comments. I do that. But I make a lot of YouTube content. And, people are always infatuated with this idea of, oh, you can get ad revenue. And, every 1,000 views, you'll make $1 million.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, you can make money at it, right? I'm not going to say you can't. But you've got to have that other thing that you sell, right? You've got to have, it's got to be driving value other than, you're just not going to make money off ads. You're not going to make enough money off ads. You've got to have that thing that goes along with it.
Yeah. So true. Now, you bring up a YouTube, and I see you've, as of right now, you got 70,000 subscribers. That's, you must have the biggest, in our space, the biggest YouTube channel out there.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, other than Guy in a Cube, right? But they work for Microsoft, so I don't consider that fair.
Tell us about that journey.
So that was an interesting one. So if you back up just a little bit, you wanted my whole life story. I know you did. I sold my first SharePoint company, and then I went and worked for the people who bought it for a few years. And when I was done with them, I kind of came out like, all right, what do I do now? And so I tried a little this, a little that. And at some point, I was like, I really got into PowerShell, of all things. And so I made some PowerShell videos, and I kind of enjoy this. So I made some more PowerShell videos. And, I had a lot of fun with that. I have one PowerShell video that is just shy of 1 million views.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I realized, remember we talked about earlier, I wasn't going to make any money off of just the videos. And it turns out that no one is willing to pay for PowerShell consulting.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy, right?
It really is. They're like, hey, I'm stuck in all these things. I'm like, cool, I can write that for you. It's going to be X number of dollars. And they're like, well, why would I pay you for that? I'm like, well, I like to eat dinner. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then I kind of transitioned. That was about the time I got into the Power Platform. And that's... with Power Apps, I was kind of one of the very first people to start putting content out there, and I it sounds terrible, right? But I kind of captured a lot of the audience before the other creators showed up. So I've kind of got a big head start, and as you know, with that type of stuff, it kind of snowballs, right? I'm sure it's the same with this show, right? Your subscriber count, it just grows exponentially. The bigger it gets, the faster it grows.
And the longer you're doing it. But I mean, I think last year when I'm just trying to work out when we last met at a conference, and there's definitely at MVP Summit, and I think you had around 30,000 there. So in a year, you've well over doubled your numbers. Amazing.
Yeah, I just it's consistent content, and just. I think I'm scratching the right itch. I would not say that my content is this amazing stuff. It's just, I scratched the right itch, I think.
Yeah. So for those out in the community thinking that, YouTube might be their thing, and we're talking, of course, about technical YouTubing and in the Power Platform space. What's your advice?
So a couple of weird things, kind of, one is YouTube is not a place for you to show how smart you are, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I know this really hard thing. I'm going to make a video on it, which is awesome. I'm glad you know it. But there's like 5 people in the world that want to watch that video. Whereas when you make a video like my intro to PowerShell, which is literally the most simple PowerShell stuff you could ever imagine, turns out there's 1 million people on the internet that wanted to watch that, literally. So making content that has broad appeal while not being generic. You have to be specific, but trying to stay at that higher level is a key. Another big facet of it is, this seems so simple, don't be boring. There are so much good content on YouTube, but the presenter they just can't, put any voice inflection in there. They can't have any fun. On my videos, I leave in my mistakes. I make dumb faces. I do silly things, and that's just me, right? It's not me putting on a show. It's just my personality. But I leave my personality in the content, and the users tend to resonate with that. So
yeah. What's often kind of comments and stuff I get from a podcasting perspective is, what's your technology? Is there a pattern? That type of thing. How much dependency do you put around the tech, whether it be your camera, your mic, your environmental setup, and then what's your kind of rules of thumb that you kind of work to with producing videos nowadays after 3 years of doing it solidly?
Yep, nope. Well, strangely enough, the most important facet of a good video is your audio quality. So if you're looking to get into the game, the first thing you do is you buy a good mic. From there, almost any modern webcam will record your face just fine. And then with that, I'm a big fan of a software called Camtasia. So I use that for all my editing, recording needs. It does a picture-in-picture built in. And it's got a lot of advanced features, but I'll be honest, Mark, I don't use many of them, right? I just I record, I cut out the dog barking, I cut out, when I sneeze. But for the most part, I try to leave, like I said, if I screw up the formula, I'm like, all right, you know what? They're going to screw the formula up too. It's okay. And I get a lot of comments back from people where they're like, I love that you leave that, right? I love that you showed, that this isn't just all smoke and mirrors. It's real. So Camtasia, a good mic, and then an average video camera is more than enough. And then from there, I think you tune. If I look at kind of how my hardware has evolved over the last 3 years, it definitely has. But I didn't need any of that to get started. I started on a Logitech headset in a $10 Microsoft Live Cam or something like that.
Yeah. And what about the kind of rules of thumb you follow around producing videos?
So the biggest thing there, and I probably had this chat with a lot of people at the time, so I've kind of refined my messaging. But one thing you have to remember is that on YouTube, people have a very short attention span, right? So your podcast subscribers, they all know you. They know you're going to put out an amazing show. They're not judging the show every episode, right? Whereas on YouTube, most of my traffic is not my subscribers. It is random people that are finding me. So I try to make sure in the first 20 seconds of that video that I am very clear, hey, in today's show, you're going to learn this, and this. I try to really spell that out because I look at it, so that's my audition. All right? If I get them through that first 20 seconds, then I use the next minute and a half or so to give them some tangible details. This is the function, this is the weeds we're going to get lost in. And then I get into the show. And I think that's what a lot of people miss, is that you've got to be a used car salesman in that first 20 seconds because people just don't have people get bored real fast. So
interesting. Tell us about the Power Platform. You've been in it 3 years. What are the kind of the highs, the lows, and your expectation for the future?
Oh, goodness. I think the high and the low at the same time is the pace of change. right? Because you've been in this space for what, 10 years now yourself, and that constant evolution, it sometimes gets exhausting. Just today, so I'm working on an article for like kind of like a power platform roundup, and somebody's like, "Oh, where's your power virtual agent content?" I'm like, "Oh my god," because I hadn't even thought of it. I literally completely missed my mind, but that's part of our power platform, and I'm like, I guess I should learn that. Have you played with it much?
Yeah, I integrated it to my website and stuff like that, and gave it a good run when it first came out, and hit the walls, so to speak. But I haven't done much more since then. So it's probably, what was that? It came out about 8 months ago, 9 months ago now. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, not a heck more after that.
So you're much further along than I am. So, but I think that's the big challenge with the power platform is that rate of change, keeping up with what's going on. One of my favorite facets, though, is what I refer to as the democratization, easy for me to say, of that, of AI and those other really tough technologies. It's just amazing. An accountant can jump into Power Platform and go in, open up a wizard, and design an AI model by clicking some boxes around some content, and then say train. And an hour later, they are doing artificial intelligence against their own data set, and they didn't write a single line of code. They don't even understand what it means. They just know that they pointed at the data and they get what they want.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's going to get more like that, right? As in, when Azure first came out, as an example, it had all these discrete, highly technical things it could do, and oftentimes there was like 3 or 4 services that could do one thing. And people are going, we don't want to have to work out what thing to use as is the right for us necessarily. We just want to, and so therefore you get products like we have now with AI Builder that says, you don't have to worry about all those details under the hood. You can just get in and get involved.
Right, and I mean, isn't that amazing that you don't have to be super nerd to do those type of things? I just finished a mixed reality starter app that I haven't released yet to the world, but it's still got some there's still some kinks in the mixed reality bits coming out of Microsoft yet. But the fact that I did this thing, in just one Sunday afternoon, I built this app to, do a bounding box around my kitchen table, and I could move it around and see where else it might fit in the room.
That's sick.
And it's ridiculous.
And so you did that all in a Power App as well?
Yes. So I just built a mobile Power App, opened up my phone. I'm like, oh, look. The other one is, so on my YouTube channel, I feature Chewy, which is my big giant Labradoodle, on a lot of different content. And so I have these still images of him. And so I was using mixed reality to put like pictures of Chewy beside Chewy on the couch. Like, which one's the real Chewy? And if you spend enough time, I could make it like I really would have to look at it and go, which one's Chewy and which one's the picture of Chewy? I was blown away.
Yeah. Last year in Barcelona, I think Sasha did the presentation and demo of the release of the new HoloLens. And one thing that kind of struck me there is the idea of having a virtual meeting with what I would call a war room from, my consulting days, which is where, you would go and strategize around a customer project. It might be a 2-year project, and all these artifacts would be put around the walls and stuff. But of course, as soon as, you'd get signs on the door saying, don't take anything off the walls, don't move anything because it's so critical. And what they showed there is this possibility of, everyone can chuck their headset on, doesn't matter where you are in the world, and you can create these virtual rooms with all those artifacts in there. And in 6 months' time, if you want to jump back to what your meeting was and what was put up on the wall, you can virtually do it. It's a pity that the whole HoloLens headsets, all that kind of stuff is not at a consumer level pricing, the price of an iPhone, for example. And I think it would have changed the whole way COVID run if just about everybody, in business had one of those headsets.
Yeah, I had not seen that demo, but the fact that doesn't melt my mind, that you could just build this virtual room and coming back to it 6 months later, just tells you like our level of expectations. Like it's no longer shocking when they do something that is quite frankly shocking.
Yeah. I saw the other day a video of two people playing table tennis in two different locations, virtually. So it took the trajectory of the ball, all that kind of stuff. They were in, the cameras were on, so you're getting that physical looking person on the other side. And it was, it just blew my mind that people in two different offices could play table tennis like that. And it was as near real as you could get. You could talk smack, you could do, any of that type of thing. The virtual world's gone nuts. We're almost up on time. What advice would you give to newcomers joining our industry or even wanting a career in this space?
Just go do it. There's no magic, puzzle here. There's no like skill set you have to bring to the table. For the most part, it is just people jumping in and trying to build an app, And what I would say that 50% of the people I talk to are not from an IT background. They know their business rules and they just jump in and they try, and they've built some of the best apps because they don't have preconceived notions. One of them is a CFO at this trucking company, right? And he's like, all right, I built this app, and he's showing it to me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, dude, you could just do this for a living. So it's not. It's just going and doing it, and unfortunately, I think to be really good at this, you need to have some level of a passion for it, because the rate of change you and I talked about earlier, you've got to be willing to keep up. But if you want to dive in, find an app you want to build yourself an app, go from there.
Yeah, I like it. Mate, okay, you ready for some quick fire questions?
Uh-oh, all right, I'm going to do my best.
Okay, here you go. What was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, math.
Math, okay. What's your guilty pleasure?
Wine, red wine.
Okay. Any particular?
No, I don't like the heavy stuff. I'm usually like a Pinot Noir or a light cab type of guy.
Yeah, you'd like New Zealand then. We do some good Pinots down here.
Nice.
Yeah. If you could have any superpower, what would you choose?
Oh, that's a toughie. Super speed. I'd like to be able to, move around, do things, travel, that type of stuff a lot faster.
Nice. Would you rather explore space or the ocean?
Space.
Okay. How did you meet your best friend?
I'm going to go with on the internet.
Okay.
It was Match.com. It's my wife, believe it or not.
Wow.
So.
Very good. What's one thing that really stands out from your childhood?
I think the thing from the childhood that really stood out was my... Oh, that's a tough one. So I must sound like a super nerd, but it was my love of numbers. It was I liked to play number games like in my brain when I couldn't sleep or otherwise. I liked that. So that's a terrible answer, but that's my answer.
No, it's good. Shane, it's been great having you on the show. Tell the audience where they can kind of check out your material. Where can they find you on, the various social media channels?
So you can go out to YouTube and you can just search for Power Apps or Power Apps and Shane, and you will find I have about 100 different videos that kind of do different things in the Power Platform. That's not the PowerShell or any of that, just the Power Platform stuff. On Twitter, I'm at Shane's Cows, or you can always find me at powerapps911.com, which is, my company website. Yay!
Hey, thanks for taking the time to listen to the show. I hope you enjoyed it. And what Shane shared is he's definitely one of the gurus in our industry, and I hope you found that insightful. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/235. If you're interested in taking your career to the next level, check out the 90-day mentoring challenge. It's free. Go to my website, nz365guy.com, and take a look at mentoring. It's a 90-day challenge which covers all the bases kind of thing around Microsoft Business Apps and taking your career to the next level. Sign up if you're interested, and on the next intake, I will be in touch. Anyhow, have a great week. Ciao for now.